Welcome and welcome back to the channel. With today's video, I want to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. I finally decided to play it after many years of saying I'm not going to play it. And I just want to talk about it, give some ratings of some of the features and whatnot as part of the game. So let's just jump into it, shall we?
I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better. I am better.
So the biggest glaring issue that I have had with this game, which is I think what most people had issues with, is the story. And I'll go into the story later on because I think that's going to take on most of the video, most of the time in the video. And so let me just jump into the ratings here. I have notes that I had written down. And I think I should have been taking notes while I was playing the game, but I kind of just wanted to experience it and not really critique. I just wanted to experience it. So then I'm just going back through my memory to figure out some of the things and some of the questions that I've had with the story mainly. But as far as everything else, I'm just going to break it down here, and we're going to start off with graphics. Graphics, I gave it a 9 out of 10 because graphically this game is probably one of the best, if not the best looking game on the PS5, aside from the Demon Souls remaster, which they're both completely different art styles, of course, but this game is absolutely beautiful. Anytime I play a game on the PS5 and I think that it's like gorgeous and there's some breathtaking, scenery and whatnot, I'll take screenshots, which I don't take screenshots of many games on the PS5, but I remember taking a few, and if I remember, maybe I'll insert them here somewhere. It's a beautiful looking game, and with the remaster of The Last of Us Part 2, I played it on the PS5 Pro. And with the PS5 Pro, it runs at 60 frames. I'm not sure if it ran at 60 frames or not on the base PS5 model, but at least, this is, aside from the PC version, this is going to be the best version to play on the console. So, graphics, top tier. Mwah, chef's kiss. Moving on to the gameplay, I gave the gameplay an 8 out of 10, and the reason why that is because I have it separate here, but the gameplay loop was an 8 out of 10 because it's post-apocalyptic, it's survival, but each area is like a set area where you can either attack it from a stealth standpoint or you can go in guns blazing, and that's basically the gameplay loop. When there's areas where you're not, shooting people or using violence, you're searching the area for ammo and resources, and then also like notes for more like lore or world building. You'll see like notes scribbled down from past survivors who have passed on or whatnot, or you'll find pieces of information for like save codes or things like that. But wasn't too intricate, but that whole gameplay model, it became tedious towards the end, but really towards the end, it started to be just guns blazing. So I gave it an 8 out of 10. Now I separate gameplay from the gunfights because the gunfights I think are top tier. The gunfights, especially with the battle damage, which is like bullet damage, oh my goodness, some of the best I've seen in the game, like in the games industry. Aside from GTA 4 and probably Max Payne 3, The Last of Us 2 probably has some of the best bullet damage and gunfights that's out there. And I really wish they would have done something else with it, aside from, it just being tied to a game that's pretty linear, and there's just enough gunfights that makes you want more, if that makes sense. So I gave that a 9 out of 10 for the gunfights. Moving on to sound, I gave the sound 9 out of 10 because they really locked it down, from the sounds of like reloading your guns to walking, sneaking, the environment, like all of it is top notch. So 9 out of 10 for sound. The pacing, I gave it a 6 out of 10, and this is where it starts to really get disjointed in my opinion, because the pacing ties into the story for me. at least. And I don't know, man. 6 out of 10. Maybe it could be lower. But just it, because of the pacing and the story, because the story wasn't that well done, in my opinion. This is all just critiquing the story from my consumer perspective. The pacing of the story doesn't help the storytelling. It makes it actually feel more disjointed, and that's the biggest thing that I have with this story in general. So I gave the pacing a 6 out of 10. Now the story, I mean, some fanboys might not like this, but in my opinion, the story was, I gave it a 4 out of 10 because I don't think it was that well. I don't think the story was that really interesting. It basically comes down to revenge plots, and that contrasted with The Last of Us Part 1. I mean, Part 1 was grief-stricken in the beginning, and now you're tossed into this post-apocalyptic planet where you're trying to survive, and now all of a sudden there's this glimmer of hope with this human being, this young girl who's immune, and the whole point of the game is to get her to this group of people who seemingly is supposed to be the good guys who are able to, possibly make a cure. So it's much different from basic revenge narrative. And I didn't, comparing it to number 1, it wasn't that great, which is really weird because usually part 2s of video games are much better. But I think the story in part 1 is told so much better. But like I said earlier, I think for me, the story was so disjointed, and a lot of the times it took me out of the experience. It's only after retrospectively looking back at how things were executed that you really start, at least for me, you really start to look at it and go, wow, why were these decisions made in this way? This isn't the most effective way to tell the story, at least from a consumer standpoint. Maybe not a creative standpoint. Maybe I think a lot of things were done for shock value or subverting people's expectations, but maybe that was the attempt, but I don't think it was executed that well. I think there are a lot of things that happen in the game that I think if they were told in different orders in specific ways, I think it would have landed much, much better. Spoiler alert, I'll put a little warning here just in case you haven't played it and you don't know what the story is. Going forward from this point, I'm going to be talking about the story and why I don't think a lot of it makes sense. So there you go. Initially, I just wrote this down just to kind of get it out of the way. Now, from part 1, the way that the doctor reacts when Joel busts in to save Ellie at the end of part 1, he's acting in a way like an NPC, basically. He's acting in a way that's uncharacteristic of the doctor that we see in part 2. And even in part 2, when they flash back to that scene, how he reacts is completely uncharacteristic to the doctor that we're shown in the flashbacks with Abby. So that's one issue that I've had, because it seems like the story was kind of patched together to give motive to Abby. And it wasn't, I don't think, at least it doesn't seem like it to me. And this is no knock. I'm just saying this is my critiques of the story. So you take it however you want. It seems like it was just a cheap insertion of that character to try and give the character that was being pushed in this game motive. It doesn't feel organic or creatively sewn in to the story, if that makes sense. Now, in the beginning, as you're playing as Abby, you don't know this until after you play the game, But there's a group of people that's in the lodge. You have Abby, you have Abby and her group of friends that you're later on introduced to by name and by relationship and what. Now, later in the story, you find out that Isaac is the leader of the wolves. And he's not very big on people leaving his compound that he doesn't approve to leave, right? I think it's a bit of lazy writing, or it could be that Isaac gives the approval for Abby and her group of people to go all the way from Seattle to Jackson on a hunch, on a lead, on hearsay, basically. And the reason, because even what's his name says it. I can't fucking remember his name, but her friend says there's no way Isaac is gonna let that happen, or let that many people leave the compound. And Abby says, well, he already did. You know as well as I do how Isaac is all about justice, which is really interesting because later on you see Isaac ruthlessly going through and taking out the Scars, which is another group of people who are religiously like tied in to their own thing. Like he's ruthlessly like just going through and slaughtering them. So I don't know how this whole justice thing comes in. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's, like I said, it feels disjointed. Like it's a lazy way of inserting how, you know, the motivation for Abby to be here to here, to get her from here to here, basically. Because it's uncharacteristic of her, Isaac. He's very, when you're introduced to him, he's ruthless. He tortures people. So I don't understand how she gets this whole, well, Isaac's, you know how he is about justice. It doesn't tie together. It doesn't mesh well with his character, if that makes sense. Also, because of justice, Isaac has zero stake in the whole Joel thing. He has no ties to the Joel thing, but he still approves Abby and her group to go states away on a hunch. I'm going to just reiterate that. It's a hunch. It's just a rumor because some Fireflies that Tommy used to ride with a decade ago got picked up at the wall, which is up by them, and somehow they got out a lead of Tommy, like where he's located. And this is just a hunch. And I'm going to reiterate it again. It serves no purpose for Isaac and his group. This is solely a self-driven motivation for Abby, for Joel. And she even says, Isaac remembers what Joel did to the Fireflies. And that's all the exposition we get. Isaac remembers what Joel did to the Fireflies. That's all. Nothing personal with him. Like, there's nothing. So for him to be like, you know, I have a big problem with people leaving my compound and so on. But sure, I'm going to give the okay for mad people, a huge, like, mad people to go on states away to find someone that has zero ties to me, that I have zero interest in. Like I said, I think it's very disjointed. Now, I do believe, execution-wise, I think if we would have started out playing as Abby in the beginning of the game, how you start playing her about the second quarter through the game when you take over Abby playing her, if we started out the game that way, I think the game would have done so much better story-wise. And in turn, because people have such problems with the story, I think it would have made a completely better game. I think if you would have started out playing as Abby and then do her flashbacks with her father, lead her to getting, maybe coming up with a better way to get from Seattle to Jackson somehow. And then going from that transitioning into Ellie, and then having everything else, you know, happen with Joel. And then you take over Ellie and have her go on her, you know, revenge mission or whatever she was going on in this whole second half of the game. I think it would have done so much better. The storytelling would have done so much more for the overall world building and introducing this new character. But the fact that I don't even understand why we play as Joel in the beginning, honestly. Like, we just ride a horse down, and that's pretty much all we do with Joel. It was pointless, really. But with Joel being so old as a character, I understand Naughty Dog wanted us to play as a younger character, which would be Ellie, of course. But in my opinion, I think you play more as Abby in the game than you do with Ellie, which is kind of weird. Like, I felt like I spent more time playing Abby than I did with Ellie. I don't know. But I think if you would have started off with Abby, introduced that character to us as the consumers, and then everything happened, and then bam, you're playing as Ellie now. Okay, now we're back as playing as Ellie, an older Ellie. You get what I'm saying? I think it would have just solidified the character more. It would have made us care more. But when you introduce that character in the beginning, kill off the main person we played in the first one, who we've come to love, adore, and be emotionally attached to, you've now created that person as a villain. No one's going to want to do anything with this character. You've already shot yourself in the foot. I don't care about motive at that point. I don't care what her past was. You get what I'm saying? It's told so disjointed and backwards that it's not effective. It's the way the story is put together. It's done in such an ineffective way, in my opinion, that it just takes you out of the story in a lot of ways. And on top of that, overall, I thought there was going to be more of an upbeat energy, like towards the end. But throughout the whole game, man, the whole game is just like a very dark and like dreary experience. It's like, and I get it, it's post-apocalyptic. I get that, I understand. But I think you can still tell a very good story in that type of setting. The whole story, though, the energy is just low. And there's no silver lining. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Even at the end, you know, by the end, Ellie can't even play guitar, which is the last memory, basically, she has of Joel. That was the last thing that he basically gave her, was the lessons of playing that guitar and playing that specific song. And she can't do it anymore because she's missing 2 fingers. And she just kind of accepts that, you know, she let Abby go. She comes back to Dina not being there anymore, cleaned out, her kid being gone. And there's like it's nothing. It's just like she comes back into the house, sees the guitar, tries to play it, sets it by the window after she realizes I can't do that anymore, and then just leaves. And still, here's the kicker. She never figures out that what Abby's motivation was for taking out Joel. We as the player know. But the whole point and motivation of Ellie to go and find Abby was to deliver revenge, to take her out, because she took essentially her father figure out. And she never finds out that the reason why Abby went and did that was because Joel took out her father. It's never connected at all. It's never connected. And then, like, the characters do like a 180, Tommy and Ellie. In the beginning, Ellie wants to go after Abby and like wreak havoc and get revenge. And Tommy's like, well, hold on, let's pump our brakes. But then he goes off and does all the revenge, you know, Ghost of Seattle or whatever what you know, what the internet calls him. And then by the end, after he almost dies, he loses an eye, and he has a limp now because he got stabbed, I think, or shot in the leg. I can't remember. But after that happens, and after Ellie gets the shit knocked out of her, and Dina almost gets by Abby, you flash forward, and Dina had her baby, and Ellie and them and Dina have a house and a family, and they're blah 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 blah. But Ellie is still dealing with the death of Joel and how brutal it was. And then Tommy comes to visit them and says, like, hey, this is what the situation is. We have leads that, like, and she's like, I don't want to do that no more. It's like their roles flipped. He's upset. He wants to do the revenge thing now, but Ellie doesn't. The story is just so disjointed. And that's why I gave it a 4 out of a 10. I think if I said it before, I think if they would have taken specific places of where you played characters and put them different areas, I think it would have been executed way more. The execution of how the story was told was horrible. And I don't know if I don't know why. Maybe there was some sort of issues with development. I do know that, you know, someone had hacked in and leaked all of this stuff prior to it being released and whatnot. But yeah, I think there was like some sort of like development issues because of crunch that Naughty Dog was introducing. So maybe I don't really know. I can't speak on it because I don't work in the industry. But yeah, the execution of the story just was not good, and it brought the game down a whole lot, because otherwise I think the game could have honestly been a masterpiece. And just recently there's been, with Neil Druckmann coming out and saying, with the show released and whatnot, season 2 being released, that there's a good chance there might not be any more Last of Us video games being developed, which, I mean, I don't know where do you go after this. There was nothing set up in number 2 to continue forward. I mean, at the end, Ellie basically was like, I'm done with the revenge plot. I let Ellie go, or I let Abby go off into the distance. Where else do you go? Where else do you go from here? What story do you tell? Unless you go into the future and create new characters that hopefully maybe we like and fall in love with. But I honestly, at this point, I don't know where they go with the story. I don't know what story there is to tell with another Last of Us. So I don't know. Maybe they jump into another Uncharted, or, you know, they're doing the Intergalactic, a new IP game coming out. So maybe they focus on that. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. I'm glad I waited so long to play it. I probably will never play it again. The first playthrough, it was okay. There's really no reason to play it again for me. I got the experience that you know, they offered me, and the game is what it is. There's no replay value to it. Really, there's no online. There's no multiplayer. So it's a kind of a one and done at that point. So that's kind of it. Overall, it was a mid experience, in my opinion. But yeah, you guys let me know what you thought of The Last of Us, if you played it, The Last of Us 2 at least. Let me know what you thought of the story, the gameplay, you know, all the stuff that I talked about in this video. You let me know down there in the comments section below. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button. If you like my content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Help your boy out. And as always, it has been your boy. It's been real, and I'm out. Later.